Hello, I'm Jamie and I just got back from SGDQ. SGDQ stands for Summer Games Done Quick, and it's a week-long video game speedrunning marathon. It's for charity and it was a lot of fun. In this video I'm going to talk a bit about the event in general, what it was like to be there in person. Maybe it'll help you decide if you want to go to something similar in the future. After that, I'm going to talk about the specifics of my vacation, sort of as a personal update. I thought it would be fun to do kind of a vlog about this event, but it turns out that, one, I never remember to take photos or videos of anything, and two, when I do remember, I feel super awkward about recording video in public. Like, I always feel like people are going to be uncomfortable with that. I did take a couple of videos, so I'm going to put together what I have and see how that goes because it's Tuesday. It's time for my weekly video. So first of all, SGDQ was a lot of fun. I really enjoyed it and I'm so glad I got to go. The majority of the event happens in the streaming room where the video games that are being marathoned are being streamed to the SGDQ Twitch channel, and that's where all the donations come in. There are incentives for donating more, such as being able to choose the names of characters in some games or deciding what version of a speedrun someone is going to do. And it's really fun being actually in the room where that's all happening and you're surrounded by a crowd of people who are reacting to the good and bad things that happen on stage. It's kind of like being at a sporting event. It's very exciting. Obviously you can watch all the games online on the Twitch channel, so if that's all you're interested in, probably not worth it to go, but there's so much other stuff going on at the same time as well. It's definitely a very social event, and there are games happening in other rooms. Like there's a practice room and a casual room, both of which are full of TVs that you can plug consoles into, and you can also borrow consoles for free. You just have to trade your ID until you give it back. And there are old consoles from the 80s and 90s up to newer consoles as well. So it's fun that people get to play games together and hang out or just show off their skills. There was a whole Tetris group that brought a bunch of equipment like fight sticks. They're those big controllers with a joystick and buttons on them, and I got to borrow one of those to try playing Tetris the Grandmaster 2. And that was really fun. I'm really glad I got to do that, and now I definitely want to play more of that game. There's also a tournament room which usually has Smash Brothers happening in it, but people can also plan their own tournaments of whatever games they like, and you can just sign up on a sheet to say that you want to be part of that tournament. Now I went to one of those and it had mixed results, I felt, because I had expected that it would be like the Magic the Gathering tournaments I used to go to, where everyone gets to play every round, and you keep being matched up with someone who has won a similar number of times as you have. But in this case, I didn't realize at first that you only get to play a couple games and then you only get to go on from there if you've won. So that was very disappointing. But at the same time, it's still really cool that people get to plan their own little tournaments like that. One of the coolest parts of the event for me was the arcade. They had all kinds of arcade games in big cabinets, along with pinball machines and the tabletop kind of arcade game that you can set your drink on. And they're all set to free play mode, so you don't have to put in quarters or anything. And I had lots of fun playing Space Invaders and Crazy Taxi and this rhythm game called Jubeat, I think. And that was really cool. It also runs 24 hours a day, so even if you're up in the middle of the night, you can go down to the arcade and play some games. So definitely the biggest part of being at SGDQ in person is the social aspect. Now, I'm not a very social person, so generally I would go and play some games with people and then go hide in my hotel room for the rest of the day, which worked out great for me. But basically you can be as social as you want to. But I would for sure recommend knowing in advance who you're going to hang out with. Either travel with someone or plan in advance with some online friends and make clear, like, I want you to be my default person to hang out with when I don't have anything else to do. Because I think if you don't have a default hangout buddy, it could be a really lonely event to be at if you're just sort of by yourself trying to figure out what you're going to do next. So especially if you are a very social person, make sure you do have your group of people that you can play games with or go for meals with or that kind of thing. I should note that it's a pretty expensive endeavor. Now the tickets for SGDQ itself were not very expensive. I'm pretty sure it was less than $100 for 2 people. But there's also the hotel and airfare, of course, and all the food for the week. Now, I stayed right in the hotel where the event was happening, which was the Marriott City Center in downtown Minneapolis. And that hotel, at least for the kind of room that I got, was $125 a night. So that's a pretty big deal. Definitely take into account whether you can actually afford to go. Another really cool thing about SGDQ was being able to see a whole bunch of Twitch streamers in person, including some really popular ones. And I did get a little starstruck a couple times. And some people got autographs and that kind of thing. So if you have some streamers that you really like to watch on a regular basis and you'd like to meet them in person, that's a really cool aspect of the event. And everyone was really nice. Like, I'm a little shocked at how different the culture was in person versus online. I don't know if you've ever seen the chat channel that happens on SGDQ. It's a garbage fire. Like, people can be really cruel, but shockingly, in person at the hotel, everyone was so nice and so respectful and got along. And there were posters that they'd put up on the walls explaining, you know, harassment is not allowed, and people actually seemed to respect that. And I don't know what it would take to make the online community as respectful, but I really did like the kind of social environment that it was at the event. I think it's important to note that if you are negatively impacted by some of the stuff that happens online, it's really pretty easy to avoid it, especially if you're at the event, because you get to communicate with people in person about what's happening in a fun and respectful way. And since you do have that source of communication, you don't really have to log in and look at the chat at all. So I did like that aspect of things. So overall, I would say it was a really great experience, and if you can afford it and are looking for the social aspects of this kind of speedrunning event, I would definitely recommend going. I really lucked out on my hotel room. We had booked a double room, and they were out of those, so they gave us a giant single. It had a big living room and a little fridge, and it was really nice and really comfortable. Now, I understand some people had some problems with the hotel, like wrong charges and getting noise complaints when they were only talking. I didn't have any of those kind of issues. The only real issue I had with the hotel was with the restaurant. It was really expensive for what it was, and it didn't have a lot of food options. And the buffet in particular was expensive for what it was. And after the first day, I decided to look for other breakfast options. And the biggest issue I had with the restaurant was one time when I went with a friend who's vegan and asked, is this meal dairy-free? And they said yes, and then it came and it had cheese on it. And when the server took it away to replace it, the server said, but the cheese is really good though. And like, that's not appropriate. Whether someone's avoiding dairy because of an allergy or for ethical reasons, like, it's not okay to say, but you would like it if you just tried it. Like, who does that? Anyway, as far as the location of the hotel, I really liked it. There were quite a few different kinds of restaurants around within walking distance, and I don't drive, so that's important to me. It was a bit of a problem that, like, everything closes at 7 p.m. And on the 4th of July and before noon on Sundays. So there were times of the day when I basically had to eat at the hotel restaurant. But other than that, I thought it was a pretty good downtown, considering it was obviously the kind of downtown that no one lives in. And I definitely prefer it over a hotel in the middle of nowhere where you have to drive if you want to, you know, eat food. I noticed a bunch of differences between Minneapolis, where the event was, and Edmonton, where I live. For example, it seems like in Minneapolis they put hot sauce on everything, or at least you're offered hot sauce. everywhere, like at brunch places, like do you want ketchup or hot sauce? Like that doesn't really happen at Edmonton. Also, it's really humid there. I am not used to that at all. It was hot and it was humid and it was so uncomfortable. I basically avoided going outside whenever I could. But their skyway system, where you can walk indoors between different buildings, was actually pretty good, at least when the buildings were open. Sunday morning, not so good, but the rest of the time you can stay indoors and avoid the humid heat, and just walk around from building to building. So that was really cool, and I really feel like Edmonton should take notes, because our pedway system is crap. I really liked flying on the plane. I always enjoy flying on planes. I think it's a lot of fun. I really like takeoff and landing especially, and I watched movies on the plane. I watched lots of Avengers movies. I'm really happy I got to hang out with a bunch of online friends. I met lots of really nice, really lovely people. I have absolutely no regrets there. Oh, I almost forgot. I wanted to show you my little badge that I got. This is what lets you go in and out of the video gaming areas of the event. And I really like it. And they have different kinds for what type of badge you have. So this is the 10D1. I don't know who that character is, so if anyone can tell me, let me know. And then they also had, I think Bowser was on the one for runners, and the portal robot was on the one for volunteers and things like that. So I got interrupted by a phone call, so hopefully that was all I was going to say about that. So I can't remember if there's anything else I was going to talk about. I think that might be it. So basically that is my recap of how my week at SGDQ went. Let me know if you have any comments or questions. If you're thinking about going to a video game speedrunning event or anything like that, or if you've been to one, let me know your thoughts. Let me know if there's anything else you wanted to know. And I will see you next week with another weekly video. Thanks. Bye.